Good morning, everyone. I'm Laura Lane. I'm the president here at the Livingston County Chamber of Commerce, and we are pleased to have Matthew Kennedy from Empire State Development with us here today to talk with you about the New York State Small Business Recovery Grant that is available. The Chamber has recently been awarded a grant through Empire State Development to work with businesses in our community to help you access not only this funding, but funding that is available through local as well as federal sources to help your business recover through this global pandemic. And we hope we're on somewhat of another side of this from a health and community wellness standpoint, but we also know and understand very well that your businesses have a great deal of recovery still to go. And so we want to be your partner in helping to get to that other side. And hopefully you can see this New York State Small Business Recovery Grant as an opportunity to continue to help in that recovery. How we will work today's presentation is very shortly I will turn the program over to Matthew, who has a slideshow to go through with you regarding the Recovery Grant Program. Along the right-hand side of your screen, you should see a chat and Q&A feature. Any point in time throughout the program, if you have questions, you can pop them into the Q&A or to the chat feature. We'll be monitoring those and can address those at the end or periodically as we go through the program. After the presentation, we'll go back into the main lobby screen area where Matthew will be available for Q&A. We are scheduled to go right until 11 a.m., at which time the program will shut it off. So we are also recording today's session. So if there's something that you missed or want to have access to again, we will be posting this in the Chamber's Online Learning Center so you can access the video after today's session. So with that, I will turn the program over to Matthew. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. So my name is Matthew Kennedy. I am from Empire State Development's Division for Small Business and Technology Development. I'm part of the Access to Capital team where we work on programs like this grant program along with other loan programs for small businesses, things like the New York Forward Loan Fund or the JDA Agriculture Fund. Today, I'm specifically going to talk about this new grant program, and I'm going to try to share my screen right now. What I'm going to present off of here is a deck, and I'm going to make this full screen, hopefully. There we go. So you got a better view of it. This particular deck is actually available on our Recovery Fund website at all times. This is a program and application guide that we use to help people fill out their applications, and it is actually available in 13 different languages along with English. But today I'm going to walk through, you're going to use this guide as the basis for my presentation, and there are going to be some sections of it that are a little bit on the technical side that it probably won't go too deeply into, but please remember that you can always go back and refer to this online. There's going to be some sections about how to use your browser and so forth, and aren't really appropriate for a presentation like this, but I will go through it all. So here we go. So the COVID-19 Pandemic Small Business Recovery Grant Program was created to provide flexible grant assistance to small businesses, micro businesses, and for-profit independent arts and cultural organizations who have experienced economic hardship as a result of COVID-19. The applications for the grant program are open right now at www.nysmallbusinessrecovery.com. And it is an application you complete online where you can upload your documents to show that you qualify online. We are partnered with an organization called Lendistry. You'll see throughout this presentation, you'll see the name Lendistry. Lendistry is a CDFI, and it's a national CDFI that has particular expertise in using technology to process applications, to construct websites, to do processing for grants like this. They actually did a very large grant program for California and one for Pennsylvania as well. So they have a lot of experience in working in programs like this, which is one of the reasons we selected them as our partners. So if you do apply for a grant and you get application information, or if you get emails from an organization called Lendistry, know that they are authorized by Empire State Development in the state of New York to communicate with you about this particular program. So now for grant amounts, how much of a grant can you get? Well, grant awards are calculated based on a business's annual gross receipts for 2019. So it's actually based on off your tax return, your gross receipts as listed on your tax return. And for small businesses with between $25,000 and essentially $50,000, $49,999 a year in gross receipts for 2019, it's a $5,000 flat award. For businesses between $50,000 and $99,999 is a $10,000 flat award. And for businesses with gross receipts between $100,000 and $500,000, it's 10% of that gross receipt amount with a maximum award of $50,000. So the largest grant that you can get is $50,000. And it's actually based upon your 2019 gross receipts. I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a moment. But before I get too far, there are some definitions I want to cover to make sure that we're on the same page as to what we're talking about. So when I say a small business should be incorporated in the state of New York, licensed and registered to do business in the state of New York, and it should be independently owned and operated with 100 or fewer employees. So that's when I say small business, that's what I mean. Micro business is similar to a small business, except it's a little bit smaller. So it's also incorporated in the state of New York, licensed and registered in the state of New York, not dominant in its field, independently owned and operated, but it would have 10 or fewer employees. When I mention a for-profit independent arts and cultural organization, that's going to be a small business that also is going to have 100 or fewer employees. It's incorporated in the state of New York. For independent arts and cultural organizations, seasonal employees don't count. So if you do have seasonal employees in excess of the 100, that's allowed. Those organizations are going to be in a specific industry. They're going to either be in architecture or design or film or dance or music or folk arts or a museum, opera, media, so on and so forth, what you would think of as independent arts and culture. And finally, the COVID-19 health and safety protocols. Those are any of the restrictions that were imposed by the governor via Executive Order 202. So anything that was involved in complying with those that guidance, that executive order, those are considered compliance with health and safety protocols for COVID-19. So now, a small business, a micro business, or a for-profit independent arts and cultural organization needs to be currently viable. So it needs to be currently in operation, can't have closed permanently from COVID, and it must continue to be in operation as of the date of application. In addition, it needed to be in operation on or before March 1st, 2019. So it needs to be a business that existed a year prior to COVID to qualify for the grant. Specifically, it's not going to work for a business that is newer than March 1st, 2019. That's one of the data points that we do collect. And eligible applicants are required to show a loss of gross receipts as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic or compliance with the COVID-19 restrictions. So how big an organization can you be to qualify? So small businesses, micro businesses, and for-profit independent arts and cultural organizations should have 2019 or 2020 gross receipts between $25,000 a year and $500,000 per year as reported on their business tax returns. So that's going to be line 1A on a Form 1120 or 1120S or 1065, which is your partnership return. It'll be line 1 on your 1040 Schedule C, or that will be actually the sum of lines 1A and line 2 on a 1040 Schedule F if you happen to be a farm. So if you happen to be a sole proprietor farmer, you would file a Schedule F. Now, I do want to point out that's important to note here that your gross receipts for 2019 or 2020 need to fall inside these thresholds. So a couple example businesses, if your business in 2019 had $500,000 in gross receipts, and in 2020 you only had $300,000 in gross receipts, you will qualify. Now, if your business had $1 million in gross receipts in 2019 and $300,000 in gross receipts in 2020, you can still qualify because your 2020 gross receipts are inside that threshold. So one of the 2 years needs to be inside that threshold to qualify. Also, as a for-profit business, as one of the restrictions to see that it's a viable business, you need to be able to demonstrate that the business was profitable prior to COVID. So it's $1 on the tax return is what they're looking for. $1, at least $1 in net profit in 2019. That's going to be found again on your tax return, line 28 on the corporate return or 21 on the 1120S. 22 on the partnership return, the 1065, or line 31 or 34 on your 1040 Schedule C or F, depending on what you filed. Third, you do have to be able to demonstrate a loss of at least 25% in gross receipts in a year-over-year comparison between 2020 and 2019. So essentially what's going to happen is we're going to take your 2019 tax return, take the total off your 2019 tax return, take the total off your 2020 tax return, subtract it from the 2019 tax return, and that difference, that's the percentage loss. That's what you have to have, at least 25%. So you have to be able to show at least a 25% loss from year over year to qualify. And also, you do need to be able to demonstrate that your total expenses on your 2020 business income tax return are greater than the grant you can receive. So the way that would work is, let's say that you have $200,000 in gross receipts and you qualify for a $20,000 grant. Well, listed as your expenses, as your liabilities on your tax return, you need to be able to show that you had at least $20,000 in expenses, or you can't qualify for the grant. Now, it would be very unusual for a business to encounter a situation, or for there to be a business that would be in that boat, essentially, because that would only be 10% of your gross receipts, which would be an extremely, extremely profitable business. That would be a very unusual business to have such high gross receipts and so little overhead and so little expense. So it's very unlikely that anyone's going to really run into that, but it is one of the requirements. Also, you need to be in substantial compliance with federal, state, and local laws. That's very straightforward. An example there would be that if you are a restaurant with a liquor license, your liquor license can't be suspended. That would be a good example for something like that. You can't owe any federal, state, or local taxes prior to July 15th, 2020, unless you have a covered approved repayment plan. So if you do owe taxes prior to July 15th, 2020, and you set up a repayment plan or a deferral plan, you've got an agreement to make up those back taxes, that's acceptable. We can use that as proof of your current status and taxes. And as you can upload those documents, you can verify that. And also, you can't have qualified for a business grant assistance beyond some certain thresholds. So this is particularly federal assistance. You can't have qualified or accepted federal assistance beyond a couple thresholds. And the important ones here would be the Paycheck Protection Program. You can't have received Paycheck Protection Program loans, and this would be across rounds 1 and 2 summed together in excess of $100,000. So if you receive more than $100,000 from Paycheck Protection Program, you can't qualify for this grant, because those loans can convert into grants. So essentially, mean you got a $100,000 grant. So then again, that is across both rounds. Forgiven, unforgiven, doesn't matter. Also, you can have received a COVID EIDL advance grant of up to $10,000, or a supplemental targeted advance grant from EIDL of up to $5,000. That should essentially cover everyone with EIDL. There shouldn't be anybody who received a grant larger than those. I believe those are the maximum sizes for those grants for that particular program. So I don't think anyone's going to have an issue with an EIDL grant that they receive that's going to keep them out of this program. Also note, just for reference, EIDL loans doesn't matter. You can have received any other type of loan, and it's not going to affect your eligibility for this program. And finally, you can have received an SBA shuttered venue operator grant if your business was one of the few that could qualify, that was in some of the categories that could qualify for an SVOG grant. You can have received that grant. There are no size restrictions on those grants. So now some additional information. An eligible applicant does need to provide evidence acceptable to New York State that you're operational, and then again that you're not restricted by any state, local, or other agency mandate. Due to the limited amount of funding and the high volume of requests, your business type, your geography, your industry may factor into your ability to receive a grant. There's a possibility that if there is too much money going to one part of the state, they may have to redirect it to another part of the state. If there's too much money going downstate, they may redirect some money upstate. And priority is going to be given in processing to socially and economically disadvantaged business owners, included but not limited to minority woman-owned businesses that don't need to be New York State certified, by the way. Service-disabled veteran-owned businesses, and businesses that are located in communities that are considered to be economically distressed prior to March 1st, 2020, is determined by the most recent census data. So those businesses may receive priority in processing their grants. So there are some ineligible businesses that I want to touch upon that are important. one in particular. So nonprofits, it must be a for-profit business to qualify for this program. Nonprofits are excluded, along with churches and other religious institutions. Government-owned entities and elected official offices, they are excluded. They're not allowed. Businesses primarily engaged in political and lobbying activities, they're not going to be allowed. And this one's important. Businesses that received awards from the SBA Restaurant Revitalization Grant Fund program. If you were lucky enough to get selected and to receive SBA Restaurant Revitalization Fund grant, those were very generous grants that were intended to really to make up all your lost revenues. And if you did receive one of those grants, you specifically are not allowed to receive one of these New York State grants. You can receive one or the other. You can't receive both. But there are some people that are in the boat that they have applied for a restaurant revitalization grant and they've been declined because there's no money left in the program. You could go ahead and apply for a New York State one because you didn't receive that money. But understand that if you did receive that SBA restaurant revitalization money down the road, you're supposed to return this particular grant. So, or you can always withdraw your application from the other program. Obviously, the Restaurant Revitalization Grant Fund program, if you're part of it, you realize it's a very generous grant. In most cases, it would make much more sense to take that grant than our grant. But that is up to you. Landlords and passive real estate income businesses are not eligible. Those are going to be Schedule E businesses. Landlords and passive real estate income businesses actually have other programs from other agencies. That's one of the reasons they're excluded. And of course, illegal businesses and enterprises are excluded. You can't get a grant for your illegal business. I'm sorry. Must be a legal business in New York State to qualify. Can't be doing illegal things and get a grant. So, required documentation. So this is an overview of the documentation that we're going to be looking for to show that how you qualify, and tried to make it as simple as possible. Most importantly, for proof of your gross receipts loss or other economic hardship, we're going to need your full 2019 and 2020 business income tax returns. Those are the full returns, all attachments and schedules, whichever return as a corporation, partnership, sole proprietorship, whichever return is applicable to your particular business, whether it's the 1120, the 1065, the 1040. We do need the complete return and all the attachments and all the schedules. Those are required. Also, we may request an IRS Form 4506C, and that's if Lendistry is in their processing requests it. The 4506C is a tax transcript request. We have the ability to get electronically a verification of the tax information that you submitted from the IRS. We're not going to need that in every circumstance, but there may be circumstances where we are looking for it. You do not need to supply this document unless Lendistry has requested it from you. And what I want to point out is that document actually has 4 or 5 lines on it that need to be filled out in advance as to where the transcript is allowed to be sent to. And what will happen is that Lendistry, if they want you to complete that document, they are going to send you that document pre-completed with that information so you can sign it and re-upload it back into the system. You really shouldn't sign a blank one. So if you are going to need one, Lendistry is going to reach out to you to tell you. Otherwise, you can skip that requirement in the process of your uploading until it's requested or unless it's asked. For proof of business location and current operation, we're going to be looking for 2 documents, any 2 documents that are off this list to show that you're currently in operation and where you're currently located. A current lease, a utility bill, so your current utility bill, National Grid, whatever your utility is in your area, your current business bank statement, current business mortgage statement, a business credit card statement. If you have a credit card that's processed in the name of your business, you had an American Express card, for example, with your business on it, a professional insurance bill for your business, a payment processing statement. So if you should use a credit card processor like a Square or another organization that processes credit card payments for your business, you can use the statement from their business as proof that you're in operation. We're just going to show receipts. Also, your New York State ST 809 or ST 100 sales tax collection documentation is allowed. That is, of course, the documentation that you've just submitted to the state of New York that you've been withholding sales tax. You're collecting sales tax on retail sales. So that, of course, will show your current operation. Also, we're going to be looking for a schedule of ownership. And this is really going to be in 2 parts. When you apply, please only apply once per business, one application per business. If you have a partner, make sure that you communicate with your partner as to which person's applying. You don't want to apply twice. It's going to cause a fraud alert, essentially, a fraud alarm in your file. That will be bad. So only apply once. Whoever is going to do the application, the owner information we're collecting for the first application on the application is just for that person. So you'll be asked to supply a name, an address, a social security number, or an ITIN number if you're a non-US owner, a phone number, an email address, your percentage ownership, and your photo ID. It's going to be required to be uploaded when you go to process your document. If your grant is selected for funding, if you qualify and you get funded, what will happen is there's a second document that you'll complete that'll have the rest of the owners listed. So if there is more than one owner that has at least a 20% interest, that owner's information is going to go on a separate document that you'll end up uploading with their photo ID. But you only need to do one at the time of application, and it should be the person, like I said, remember, please only submit one application per business. Also, for proof of your number of employees, if you are an employer firm, if you actually have employees, we're going to collect your most recently submitted NYS 45. So your NYS 45, of course, is your tax withholding document, shows that you're withholding taxes for your employees, also shows that you're paying unemployment insurance. So your most recently submitted NYS 45 document is what we need. If your business is selected for funding, your proof of business organization. So we need only one of these. We do need one of these documents to show that you're organized in New York State, that you can do business in New York State. And that would be a current business license, a current business certificate, a certificate of organization, a certificate of assumed name, which is commonly called a DBA in New York, of course, your New York State certificate of authority. That's typically for collecting tax. Usually, most businesses will have that in a frame or posted next to their cash register. So that's probably an easy document to grab. Your articles of incorporation, if you can find them, and your New York, any other New York State issued document showing authorization to operate in the state of New York. So anything that's issued by another New York State municipality, it shows you're authorized to operate. That's an allowable use. Also, finally, for funds distribution, we're going to collect your IRS Form W-9 and your bank account information. I will touch upon that at the very end of this presentation. The Lendistry system uses an organization called Plaid, probably heard of them, to do bank account ACH transfers. So they will handle that at the very end, and you don't need to do that unless you're selected for a grant. So we've talked a lot about what the documentation is for these grants and how much you're allowed to qualify for. So maybe we should talk about what you can use them for. Eligible uses of funds for grants. Grants are to be used for COVID-19 related expenses that were incurred between March 1st, 2020 and April 1st, 2021. So these are reimbursement grants. These are for expenses you've already incurred as a business. This is money you've already spent, and this is essentially making you whole. This is putting the money back in your business to cover those expenses that you already paid. So what expenses will qualify in this case? Payroll costs will qualify. Commercial rent and mortgage payments for New York-based properties will qualify. This includes principal. So for a mortgage, that includes your principal payments, your payments on your mortgage. A lot of programs don't include principal payments. This specifically includes them. It can't be a rent or mortgage prepayment because the payments need to fit inside those date ranges. Business payment of your local property or school taxes associated with your small business. So this is any sort of property related, school related taxes for your location. If you own your location, you're paying taxes that way. Your insurance costs, your utility costs, your costs of personal protection equipment for your workers or for your consumers. So this is PPE costs for your workers or your consumers, all those masks and all those shields and everything. Heating, ventilation, and air conditioning costs. So this is not only the costs of heating and air conditioning, but actually the cost of equipment changes. So let's say that you needed to change your filters for your air conditioner for COVID. That's an acceptable cost. So not only the cost of heating and ventilating and air conditioning itself, but also any equipment costs related to it. Other machinery and equipment costs are allowable. So that would be other things related to COVID that were machinery equipment purchases you made. Let's say if you're a restaurant and you bought patio heaters, or that tent that you put up outside if you bought that and didn't rent it, or let's say food warmers or carry-out bags, or any other related, anything else that would have been related to extra equipment that you needed to be open to reopen after COVID with the restrictions in place. And finally, supplies and materials necessary for compliance with COVID-19 health and safety protocols. So that's going to be your Lexan and your plexiglass and your plywood and your rolled plastic and all those stickers and all the nails and bolts and screws and all the things you had to do to put those barriers up in place for physical distancing. All those sorts of expenses, they're all allowable expenses. There are two important ineligible uses of funds. You can't use your payments on a COVID-19 related business package like an EIDL loan or a New York Forward Loan Fund loan as expenses. So grants awarded under the program cannot be used to repay or pay down a portion of the loan obtained through those two programs. So you can't use that as an expense. That is one caveat to the program. So applicant certification, there's a document that you're going to complete that's going to attest to all the things we just talked about. And this is a document that you're going to download and sign or sign electronically on the website that goes through and certifies that all the things we just talked about were true, that your business is currently in operation, that you don't owe back taxes, that you don't have tax payments in arrears sort of thing. All of those different questions that we just covered, there's going to be an attestation that you're attesting that, yes, you're in compliance with all these things. You sign it and you upload it. This document is one of the 4 required documents to have your application examined for potential funding. So you have to have this document is one of those 4 documents, and then we'll go over the others in a moment. But this is available on the website. You can always download it and view it, or you can you can do it online. So there are full instructions in this document on how to do it electronically, or how to download it and re-upload it. I'm not going to walk through that right now because it's not really something that you would probably retain from this kind of presentation. However, remember, like I said, this particular document that I'm using right now is available on the recovery site at all times, right on the front page, translated into 13 languages. So you can always refer to this information. There's lots of places where you can get this information online. So now some tips for applying, for using our portal. Number 1, we do suggest you use Google Chrome. The portal is designed to be used through Chrome. It's written for Chrome. Other browsers will probably work, but may not work as well. May have some errors, could cause other problems. I wouldn't use Internet Explorer 11. Good tips: clear your cache, open an incognito window, using incognito mode to make sure that there are no widgets that are attached to your Chrome that happen to be sniffing your data. And you have to disable your pop-up blocker, because there are places where pop-ups appear for you to accept various policies and so forth. And it's going to try to pop up. And if you can't see the pop-up, you won't be able to click the button and it won't let you through. And again, this document has full instructions on how to clear your cache, how to use incognito mode, how to disable your pop-up blocker. There's all sorts of information on the site on how to do that. So now, we also suggest or request that you submit your documents in PDF format, portable document format, of course, from Adobe. Please, before you upload your documents, take a look at them and make sure that they're clear. Make sure that you can read them. Make sure that the scans are clear for the documents. They're not misframed. They're not misaligned. They're not crumpled or out of focus. There's a machine, there's a level of machine learning or machine ability that's built into this website that's going to be viewing these documents, and it's going to make it harder for it to review the documents to see what they are. Also, physical people are going to have to look at these documents as well. So it's important for the documentation to be clear. Otherwise, you're going to have to do it all over again. If you do not have access to a scanner, there are various organizations that can help you with that. But you can also use your smartphone. There are several apps, Genius Scan, Adobe Scan, where you can use the camera on your cell phone to scan your documents and to create a PDF and upload them to the website. Please use a valid email address for your application. I know this seems like a no-brainer, but please use an email address that you're going to have direct access to, that you can view, that you can monitor, and make sure that you are receiving and answering the emails that you get from Lendistry, because they are going to be sending you emails, all sorts of them, for your various statuses and for passwords and for various other things. Please don't use email addresses that are potentially publicly accessible. Like, let's say if you have your website set up and you have a sales at or an info at or a support at or an admin at your website, the Lendistry system is smart enough as part of a fraud deterrent to not send things to those email addresses because it sees them as potential fraud points. So if you use info at or admin at or sales at or support at, this website's not going to allow that to be used. It's going to create an error. It's going to cause a problem for you. So if you don't have an access to an email address for your website that isn't one of those types of email addresses, you can use your personal email address. You could always go and get a free one. You can use Proton Mail or Yop Mail to get a free account. Just make sure it's something that you monitor, because there's important information that's going to come through your email. And watch your spam filter to make sure Lendistry doesn't end up in your spam filter. Again, this document, along with the application package and essentially all of the help and our entire phone support system, are all available in 13 languages. So if you need assistance in a language that's not English, that assistance is all available on the website and via the 877 number. That's the support number that's on our site, which is at the end of this presentation. So now the application, what information is going to be collected when you go to the application. So you're going to go to our website and you're going to go down to the Let's Get Started section and click to begin your application. Now, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to bump you to a wait line. There's essentially a holding screen that's going to pop up to throttle the amount of traffic that's going to the website to make sure that the website doesn't get overloaded, that you can complete your application correctly. You'll probably only be on this page for a matter of seconds. In fact, even at the height of the site, I don't think that there was more than maybe a minute wait to start your application. But this is so it can throttle the amount of traffic going onto the site so the site doesn't get overwhelmed. If you've ever pre-purchased anything at Christmas time, if you tried to buy a PlayStation 5 at Christmas, you know what these things are. You've seen this before. This is specifically to throttle the traffic on the website and to hold out bots to make sure that it's actual people that are making it through to complete applications. So section 1, getting started with your application. This is going to be the first section you're going to go to complete. Very straightforward. Your name, your phone number, your email address, your business name, your zip code. If you're referred by a partner, like a chamber, you're going to want to put that in there. Your preferred language. There is a box that you can select to receive text messages. If you can receive text messages, I suggest you do, because you'll get much quicker notification on your phone. You don't have to be waiting for an email to see that if you need to upload a document or if there's a change in status of your grant. If you do select that, a pop-up will come up that you'll have to click OK on. You click through that, hit continue, and move on to section 2. Section 2 is your owner details. These are your details. This is the information for the person who's actually applying. When I mentioned that you should have one person from the business apply. So this is your name, your email address, your location, your birthday, your social security number, your percentage ownership. It's going to ask you to accept the terms and conditions for the site. You'll hit OK. You'll hit save and agree. When you've completed this much of your application, in the background, the site is going to generate a user account number. You're going to create a user account and a temporary password that's going to get sent to you via that email address. Chances are it'll appear while you're doing this, or just after you're doing this, while you're doing the rest of the application. That user account and email address will let you log back in to complete this if for some reason you get knocked out, or if you save it and don't submit it. It's also the application or the email combination that you'll use to log into the portal to upload your documents. So, section 3, your business information. What information is needed? It's going to ask for your business name, a DBA if you're using one. If you're not, you type in none. your EIN number, your phone number, your business type, where you're incorporated, which should be New York, business address, business start date. That's important. If you have a website, you can put your website in there. So the business start date is very important on this page, along with your business EIN. It's going to look for your EIN number for your business. You'll notice here on the business EIN line on this this graphic, you'll see all the way to the right, there is a little I in a circle on the business EIN line. That is a little information bubble. If you hover your mouse over that I, it's going to give you more information on the question. So anytime during this entire application process, if you see that icon on the line, there's a place where you can hover the mouse over that line and get more information. Also, of course, the pull down carrots. These little carrots show that you're going to pull it down from a list. This is a calendar, of course, just like many other websites use, or you can choose a date on a calendar if you click on the calendar. Section 4, how can we help? This is where it's going to ask about how much you think you can qualify for, what you think your actual grant is going to be, and the purpose of your grant, what you think will be the primary use of your grant funds. The amount of money that you put in here for your grant eligibility amount is your estimate. You're only going to qualify for what you actually qualify for. And if you put in less, well, you're not going to get shortchanged. You're going to get the amount you actually qualify for. And if you put in more, well, you're not going to get more money. You're going to get how much you actually qualify for. So it's sort of a guidepost as to how much you think you qualify for. There's a place on the line there where you can check your eligibility. You can click on that. It's going to give you that table again as to what your gross receipts are and how much you can qualify for. This screen is also going to ask for your annual gross receipts. It's going to ask if your business was profitable in 2019. Of course, you have to select yes. If you're not profitable, you won't qualify. Your number of full-time employees gets entered here, if you retained any jobs or if you added any jobs in 2020. I also want to point out something important. On this page, you'll see across from how we can help, you'll see a watch video icon here. All of these sections have videos that are attached to them. You can click on watch video and it'll actually give you a video for each section as to how to complete the section if you have any questions. Those videos also are subtitled, and they're subtitled in all 13 languages. Section 5, your business demographics. This is going to ask you the particulars as to what your industry is and more about your business. So it's going to ask if you're a business-to-business business, a business-to-consumer business, or both. It's going to request more information on what your business does along with your NAICS code. Now, if you are New York State certified MWBE or you're a certified New York State certified organization, you've been asked your NAICS code many times before, you probably know what it is. But a lot of businesses don't know what their NAICS code is. And the NAICS code system is a federal statistical system that it's a self-assigned number. It's not something that gets assigned to you. It's something that it's a categorization of your business. So what you can do is you can go onto a NAICS code website, and there's one linked on this page. It's an easy one for you to go to. You can go to a NAICS code website, just put in the type of business that you have and what your industry is, and it's going to give you back the code that's going to say this is the code for your industry that you can put back into the site. This is how it sorts. This is how it understands what industries are being serviced by the grant and what industry your business is part of, whether you're a for-profit arts and cultural institution and so forth. It's using that code to decode it. So it's very straightforward. Don't get too concerned about it. Don't get too worried about it because it's something, again, it's self-assigned. So you can't really get it wrong, but you want to just make your best guess as to one you think covers your business. Also, it's going to ask if you're a woman-owned business, if you're a veteran-owned business, if you're disabled. It's going to ask for race and ethnicity information here. It's going to ask if you're a franchise or if you're a minority-owned business. All those questions get answered on this particular business demographic screen. And again, there's also a video, like I mentioned. Section 6, the disclosures. This is just a series of questions that it's going to ask in one big, long screen. It's going to ask, as of the date of application, is your business open and operating and so forth? Is your business a for-profit business? Are you in substantial compliance with federal, state, and local laws? These are things that go under the attestation document. It's also going to ask you a second time what your annual gross receipts were. So you verify your gross receipts. So you're attesting to your gross receipts, and it's going to ask, did you receive any support from an entrepreneurship assistance center or chamber of commerce or small business development center and so forth? It's going to ask you those questions. I'm not going to walk through all these questions, all 19 of them, but you'll go through this disclosure. When you get to the end, there's a confirmation screen. So at this point, you choose yes. You can choose yes or no. If you choose no, if you had a question about one of your questions, or if you had a concern about one of your answers to your questions, I should say, and you're not sure if you want to submit yet, you can select no, and hit save and continue later, and it's going to store it. It's not going to submit it for review, and you can go back in with that that user account information I'll talk about in a moment, and change your answers and submit it again, and submit it when you're comfortable. If you choose yes, it's going to go ahead and it's going to put you in the system. It's going to go ahead and submit it. Once you choose yes, you can't go back and edit your questions. You can't go back and edit your answers. So if you choose yes, and then later you realize you made a mistake, you'll need to contact the 877 number for them to modify it in your file. Once you've selected yes, it locks your answers in place. It's the final answer for for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. You click that you lock your answers, and it goes on. So Section 8 is a confirmation message. You're going to get a confirmation message saying that you've completed your file, you submitted your application. On this information message, you'll see it'll mention the portal where you can upload your documents. It's also going to give that 877 number that you can call if you do have any errors, that you need to correct, along with reminding you that you need to upload all your required documents within 14 days of your application. Excuse me. So Section 9, your username and password. I mentioned this before. While you were working on everything, it generated a username and password for you. This username and password document is probably already in your email by the time you get to the end of everything. This is how you can log back in. Use your email address as your username. Use your temporary password. You can follow the link in this email to log back into the portal, set up a permanent password, and begin uploading your documents. Now, there are 4 documents that are required to be selected to go to the selection process. Those 4 documents: your applicant certification that you either signed electronically or downloaded and signed and re-uploaded to the site, your identification, your 2020 and 2019 business tax returns, both complete. Those are the 4 documents. So you have to have at least those 4 documents in the system to be selected for processing for your grant. The other documents, your proof of business location, your NYS 45, and so forth, if you have access to them and you want to upload them now, you can. You can always upload them to get yourself staged beforehand. If you want to make sure everything is in line, it will smooth your processing later if you've already got those documents and you can upload them. So you don't have to, but the option is there. But the first 4 documents on the list when you go on to the portal, with the red asterisk, those are required. The blue ones, those are remaining, but may not be required for your business. So like say if it's an NYS 45, and they're not required for the actual selection process. You will, if you go to this website, you want to make sure that it says that your proper business type is listed. In this case, this is a corporation. It should pull it automatically out of your account. But just in case, you might want to change that or check that, make sure that it is correct so that it gives you the proper list of things below. You can upload your bank info from here too, but again, you don't have to do that until it's time for you to get funding. And you may not want to until it's time for you to get funding, so you don't have your bank information out there at all. How to upload documents into the portal. So the portal is very straightforward for uploading documents. I'm not going to get too deeply into this, but you can upload your PDFs via the portal. There are full instructions on the portal as to how to go through the process, where to click, how to browse on your computer, how to choose the file, how to upload the file. Or they can be password protected. If you are using PDFs, you can have them be password protected on the actual documents if you want to. If you do password protect them, you do have to put the password in the website, in the secure section of the website, so that they can be decoded and they can be opened. You don't have to password protect them, but you can if you want to. And now finally, linking your bank information. This is only required if you're approved for grant funding. Again, the portal does use Plaid. It is third-party technology for doing ACH transfers, and it doesn't require you to share much of your personal information as it goes through the process. I'm not going to walk through this because this is something that you really will need instructions for when you're going to do it, as opposed to right now. But I will say that if you're sole proprietorship, your bank account does need to be a business checking account. So make sure that you have a business checking account that you're using for your sole proprietorship, and it has to match your name or your DBA because it is going to verify that when it goes through to do the matching via Plaid. So that wraps up my slide presentation. So again, application language assistance is available at the 877 number, 877-721-0097. So that is available in 13 languages. And of course, the website is www.nysmallbusinessrecovery.com. A couple things that aren't part of this deck that I do want to mention. The website or the applications themselves, it's not truly a first come, first serve application process. What's happening is the applications are being processed in batches. They're being batched out by regions and by locations and by industries and so forth. So the first notifications of selection are just appearing this week. So it might be a situation, depending on your location, you might put in an application and it might take a couple weeks for you to get notification, or 2, 3, 4 weeks, depending on where they are in the process, to get notification that your grant is selected for processing. So you're going to want to keep, again, watching your email. You can always log back into that website with your account, and it will show you the current status of your application. Most people will show up as waitlisted, which means that you're on the list waiting to be selected. So until you see something that's listed that says that you are ineligible, that you're knocked out, you're still in line to get a grant. You're still, the chances, there's still a chance you're going to get the grant. So don't be concerned if you're waitlisted for a long time. The only time there's a situation where you're not going to get a grant is you're going to get a specific notification that says that you're not eligible for the grant for some reason. And they're going to go through, Lendistry is going to go through to verify information. So if they see something that is going to keep you out from a grant, they're going to try to verify with you to make sure that that was correct, that that wasn't a mistake in your part when you're going to upload your documents or you're going to type in your information. So now I can answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, Matthew, so much for this presentation. If you have a question, you can use the Q&A feature. I've been watching it throughout the presentation. We haven't had any come through yet, nor have we had in the chat. So if you have questions, you can pop them in here at the Q&A. We have about 5 minutes left. What we'll do is we can come out of presentation mode and back into the main room. And Matthew, if you want to come off the stage down to one of the tables in the room, if people have questions, they can pop right over to an open seat. Just double click on that open seat, and Matthew will be available for the next 5 minutes or so to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Sounds good.
We'll come right out of present mode. Thank you.